Hello and welcome to another edition of the Leader Campus Voices. My name is Mel Wildermuth, and with me is Dr. Judith Wright, who's a life coach, an author, professor of emotional intelligence, and leadership consultant. And thank you for joining me. You're in Chicago, we're in West Des Moines, and both of us are kind of in a deep freeze here as of late. But let me start out with the first question, and thank you again for agreeing to the interview. But since this is the start of the new year, pretty close anyway, what could leaders do to reach those 2018 resolutions, fulfill some of the things that they say they're going to do?
Yeah. It's a really good question because is the time. We have a lot of hopes. We want to kind of correct any errors of the past. We've got new dreams for the new year. But the real stats on what happens with New Year's resolutions, that maybe 8 or 9% of people actually achieve them. So we want to make sure we're the ones that actually do achieve that. And there are things that make a difference. Oftentimes, New Year's resolutions and our leadership strategies for the year, oftentimes they're both too big and too small. And what I mean by that is oftentimes the reason isn't big enough. We really need a big vision, a big why this matters to us. What is that behind our resolution? What do we hope it would bring to us? That big why makes a big difference, because otherwise, if it doesn't have enough of something connected to our heart, something that really matters to our purpose, something that's really big for us, it's not motivating enough to really keep us through the whole year. So we need to have a really big reason, something that really matters to us, and I'll go into that in a little bit, what I would call a big yearning rather than just kind of a surface want. So big reason, but then oftentimes we have to try to get too big of steps. So we need small steps, like small units that we can actually apply day by day, week by week, and then keep adjusting those. So big reason, small steps is one of the big things that research shows that makes a difference in those resolutions. But I want to go back to that first big thing, Mel, about the big why. We, in our research of people who really live great lives and are good, really amazing leaders and have kind of influence, they're very much in touch with what we call yearnings, like what they yearn for, like really deep in their hearts, like they yearn to matter, to make a difference, to be seen, heard, known, to be affirmed, to be respected, to really empower their people that they're leading. Those things really matter to them. And they're also in touch with the yearnings of those that they're leading. What matters to the people that they're leading. And when you're in touch with that yourself, and you're aware of what it is that others yearn for, that you're working with or on your teams, and you can design what you're doing to meet those yearnings, that's when everything becomes really satisfying. And sometimes goals aren't always the things that really are meeting our deepest yearning. If you don't remember why we wanted to make that much money or get that many sales or do whatever that was. But if we remember that we really do yearn to make a difference, to matter, to connect, to really be seen, heard, known, affirmed, respected, to grow, to develop, and really focus our plans on those things to meet that, we're much more successful and it's much more satisfying. And we become much better leaders by doing
that. When you go back to the idea of this yearning, Jason Jennings has a similar thing for corporations themselves. It's called purpose. Mm-hmm. He says it's better to have a purpose than have a goal or a strategy. Mm-hmm. Would you relate that to similar to what?
Yeah, I would agree with that. But there's a little bit of a difference. Purpose is kind of the why you're doing what you're doing. It's related to why. And what I'm talking about is related to that too. But yearnings are also, they kind of have the how related to the why with it, and they have more of a quality of experience with it, because the quality of what you're doing and being present while you're implementing your goals towards your purpose, being aware of what your feelings are. That's why emotional intelligence matters in this whole thing. But really being guided by your purpose, by what really matters to you. I can't underline it enough. I know that these are common words. We talk about them a lot. But in the day-to-day, when we're just trying to get our to-dos done and under the pressures, we lose track of it and what we really deep inside.
Now, is there a difference between men and women in the way that they look at their goals here in 2018?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yes, there is some difference. I mean, we're all kind of at the heart of things, want the same things. But for women leaders, oftentimes we're looking more at the quality of experience, the quality of our relationships, the impact we have on individuals and people, the I was coaching a woman yesterday, a woman executive, and what she was really looking at is the spirit of what she wanted in her teams this year and how she wanted the meeting to feel, not just what she wanted to get done, but how she wanted herself to feel during that meeting, how she wanted everybody to come away from the meetings this year feeling inspired, like things are possible, not just what will we get done, but how will we do that and how will we feel while we do it. So the more quality of experience, relationship, connectivity, the emotions of it, oftentimes women leaders, that's more something more in touch with, and it actually makes them good transformational leaders as well.
Now, you talk quite often on your website. You talk and you have emotional intelligence and leadership, emotional intelligence. Let me pronounce a little bit, and leadership. What do you think that there's an advantage between women and men as to who has better aspects of emotional intelligence?
It's a tender question, but yes, actually there is a difference. Male-female brains are wired a little differently. Whether that's nature or nurture is still under discussion, but the wiring of our brains is different. So for women, we have a little easier access to both our emotional centers and our verbal centers. We're able to articulate our emotions. We're more aware of what those are. For man, those are more compartmentalized. It's more difficult to put words onto feeling. We all, of course, feel the same things: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy. Those are all there for us, but women have a little easier access to them, have a more, literally by design, if we look at how the brains are configured, more sensitive, and are able to read also more social intelligence. They're able to read cues from other people, tone of voice, their facial expressions, to be able to sense what's going on with another person is a little easier. It's all learnable. Men and women can learn emotional intelligence, but a woman has a little more natural access and sensitivity and awareness of emotions.
What's the advantage for a leader to have this aspect of emotional intelligence understanding?
Yeah, and it's huge now. The research is quite profound. And in fact, transformational leadership, which is really what's needed in our kind of changing times, is really very dependent on emotional and social intelligence. So what happens, or what the studies show, the more emotional intelligence we have, and that kind of blends very closely to our social intelligence that we relate with other people, all kinds of things happen. You have 37% more chance of closing a sale, for example. You have more leadership following. You tend to inspire the people that you're leading more fully. They have more loyalty towards you. There's more kind of getting on board toward the purpose together when you demonstrate more emotional intelligence. You're more productive when you have more emotional intelligence. Anywhere up, depending on how complex your job is, up to 137% more productive when you have this emotional facility. I think we used to think our emotions would get in the way of our productivity.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Well, most of the time, people have always said that there's a separation between home and work. Can anything like that really interfere with the way that you perform on your job?
Sure, I think we can get pretty worried about things, or stressed out or upset. The one can kind of bleed into the other. But actually, the more we can develop our emotional facility, and what I mean by that is being able to know what is it that we're feeling, be able to name that feeling, to be aware of that, and to deal with it, whether it's to comfort ourselves a bit, or to express ourselves, or to get the support that we need, or to really use them. The more we can deal with the emotion, the more effective we are. And it's not, the older thinking was that we should numb those feelings. We should make them go away. And that's actually what they're finding, is that takes really precious cortical resources from our brains. It actually drains our capacity to really think clearly. So where we don't want to be flooded all the time with emotions that we don't know how to deal with, if we can, they call it name it to tame it, which you may have heard of before, but if we can just say to ourselves, oh, I'm scared, or I'm angry, or to ourselves, just even acknowledge that feeling, that brings these higher level, our prefrontal cortex back online. So we still have the feeling, but we can sort through better how to deal with it. So having that emotional facility makes us much more aware, sensitive, better able to deal with it.
Now, more and more trainers in particular seem to be dealing with neuroscience. You mentioned the aspect of how the brain works and functions. How important is it for leaders to understand how their brains work?
I personally find it really helpful, because the neuroscience can explain why things work. They don't, neuroscience isn't the field that tells us how to make that happen. It's more psychology, social sciences, and things that I work with also. But it helps us understand how we function. I mean, I think it is really helpful to see the neuroscience of emotions, for example, to know that if we can acknowledge our feelings, just again what White just was saying, that oh, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm afraid, actually helps us think more clearly. I think that's an important piece of data for us to have. So I think being somewhat aware of neuroscience, of our own emotions, neuroscience of or being able to focus, those kinds of things is helpful for me.
I've talked to a couple people who have had dealings with neuroscience as well. Marcel, Donna, and who's the other one here? These are some notes that I've taken from past interviews. Murphy, let's see, Patterson, and she, both of those people talk about the aspect of neuroscience and the way that works, and also one more. I'm sorry about this, but I wanted to get their names mentioned because it's nice to have them participate as well in some of this. Catherine. Okay, can't find it. Sorry, but anyway, talking with several people that in neuroscience, and one of their thoughts, or it seems like, and from what I've read personally with neuroscience as well, it seems to me like we first have the emotion and then we interpret that emotion, rather than we feel like, we start to say I'm fearful, then feel the emotion. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, and there is something to that. It's that there's also our emotions are kind of inside us all the time, and it's things happen and that elicits and then emotion often then surfaces. Some people make a distinction between feelings and emotions are always there. It's only a feeling when we're experiencing it at that point. And yes, our interpretation of feelings makes a big difference. The meaning we put on them is kind of influences how we experience them. At the same time, they're pretty instant. They're pretty much there. It's not so much a cognition as a full body kind of experience that we're having all the time. But it is important, I think, for us to be aware of how pervasive and how powerful feelings are, and to be able to use some of the current. There's a whole field of neuroscience, affective neuroscience. It's just the neuroscience of emotions, and that's a pretty beautiful thing. Our job, we do at the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential, and we have a graduate university, the Wright Graduate University for the Realization of Human Potential. We have master's and doctoral degrees. We're accredited university, but what we look at is applied neuroscience. How do we take that beautiful research going on, and how do we put that into skills that we can use as leaders and coaches in our world?
And that seems to me to be much more beneficial to people in the long run. You talk about another aspect of on your LinkedIn page, mansplaining. Can you tell me what that's all about? Sounds like we're in bad shape here, us guys.
Kind of I think it's used kind of pejoratively, but it's a term that women, oftentimes men can use it too, obviously. But mansplaining it could be like you're talking to a woman, all of a sudden the topic comes up, and a man then kind of condescendingly explains this as if the woman doesn't know, as if the women don't understand it, as if he's the only one that knows what that is, and kind of explains as if only a man would know this, this information. Not usually checking out, do the women know what this topic, or do they have awareness? He just kind of like barges in and says, well, blah, 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 and goes into long explanations of things. And it's common enough that it's gotten the term mansplaining. It's about women talk about that now.
What currently with all of the sexual harassment, sexual assault situation, and women are becoming more and more controlling of their own situation, seems the speaking out, etc. How do you think that will impact leadership here in the 2018?
I think it's a really important issue. It's I have another organization I started about 25 years ago. It's called SOFIA, the Society of Femininity in Action, and we've been studying feminine power, feminine leadership. How is it different from masculine? We all have masculine and feminine within us, and to use both those traits. I think it's important for this consciousness raising to be happening now, for men and women to become more aware of the influences, for us to become more aware of the abuses of power that happen. And that's, which is a part of what's happening. And for more awareness. Now, on the other hand, for not to have people be so super careful that they're not real, or that they're not really engaging really genuinely with one another. I think that would be a big loss. At the same time, for women particularly, to learn to speak up. I'm not comfortable with that, to say no, to be able to say, I prefer we don't, we don't have those kind of jokes here. That's uncomfortable. It's not okay with me, whatever. To be able to speak that and to develop the skill to set limits is really important as well. And for men to be aware that of really what the issues are with it, because there's a lot of unconsciousness about the whole topic. So I think it coming to light is really important. What I do want to avoid is that people don't demonize one another, that we don't get terribly stereotypical and judgmental, but that we stay human about it and talk about it more genuinely and vulnerably and truthfully.
Do you think that the current time span with the women coming out against people, do you think that under the current conditions that there'll be more instances that take place, or just that we find out more about the instances of the past and things are beginning to change in the workplace?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think we will become more aware of what has occurred and what is occurring in the moment. I don't know that the incidences will rise. I think it'll be kind of what it is, but I think the awareness and the calling men on it, and men even maybe, catching themselves more fully, like, wow, that was maybe a little bit out of line, where that never occurred to me before that was not okay. And I think there's just an increased sensitivity about it. I don't know that more will happen. I think that they'll become more aware and might talk about more.
What about a male in the leadership role? What do you think that his determination should be if things seem to be such as Fox News or someplace like that? In other words, he himself at the top is a good guy, but he's running an organization or just taken over an organization. It seems like it's been an old boys club for so long. How can he make those changes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's a leader's responsibility to be aware of that. But I think that's what leaders do. Leaders take on the tough kinds of issues and challenges, and they bring it to awareness. And really just talking about it, like, calling people on it if he hears that, being able to be aware of what that is, monitoring his own behavior. If that's the case, he may be above board, but it really is an important thing to be able to take charge of without, I don't want it to get so rule-based and controlling, and where men and women are afraid to be with one another and afraid to talk with one another. That's not the point. We need each other. We need the partnership. But, how we deal with things is pretty honestly, just really frank, in the moment, being able to tell the truth about what's working and what doesn't. And so fostering a culture of truth, of being able to have more vulnerable conversations, to be able to speak about topics, for people to be able to come to one another, to be able to talk about this, to have channels of communication, I think is a leader's job to create that culture.
Well, hopefully we can create the culture in 2018 in several places. It's been a wonderful interview with you, Dr. Wright. I appreciate it greatly. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Judith Wright, life coach, author, professor of emotional intelligence and leadership. And I always give the last few seconds here for somebody to plug a book or to plug some kind of thing as payment, you might say, for the pleasure of interviewing you. So what do you have to talk about here for the last few seconds?
I would love for people to know about the Wright Foundation for the
Okay.
potential, and also our Wright Graduate University for the realization of human potential. And we have courses both for credit and not for credit, coaching, training. And if anyone can get to Chicago, we have a wonderful opportunity. We have a what we call a foundations training. It's a weekend training in the foundations of what it is we teach, the emotional intelligence, leadership, about yearnings, things we've talked about. And anyone listening or seeing this can do it absolutely free. We offer it 5 times a year. There's one coming up this month, not this weekend, the next weekends, and every other month or so there's another training. I would love for all of you to come, and we can share this together and learn and grow together at complimentary from us here in Chicago at the Wright Foundation.
Oh, that maybe I'll show up on your doorstep myself. Thank you so much, Dr. Judith Wright. Take care, and maybe we'll talk to you again sometime in the future.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Bye-bye.